This webinar will cover the setup and configuration aspects of the new ACC API integration changes in Medtech32. These changes mean that you will be able to directly submit ACC 45, ACC 18 and invoices to ACC. This change impacts multiple modules across the PMS, and therefore it's very important that you circulate the release documentation and webinars to all staff to ensure they're informed and prepared for the change. First, we will cover the setup of the ACC vendor ID. The ACC vendor ID is mandatory in order to send ACC 45, 18s and invoices to ACC via the APIs. ACC have decided to allow the use of providers' existing ACC provider numbers as their ACC vendor ID. Both of these are found in the staff setup. Under Setup, Staff, Members, open up your staff member and on the Provider tab. During the upgrade, all existing ACC provider numbers will be automatically copied to the ACC vendor ID field. However, if you enter a new provider, you will need to complete this manually, ensuring that the ACC provider number and ACC vendor ID fields are completed. This icon here is used to associate a digital certificate to the ACC vendor ID of that staff member, if they've been provided their own digital certificate. If the staff member doesn't have their own digital certificate, the digital certificate configured in the location setup will be associated with the ACC vendor ID when submitting things to ACC. The ACC vendor ID field is also available in the location settings. This is found under Setup, Location, Location Settings, and under the Codes and Defaults tab. This is only applicable to practices who have previously enabled and used the ACC eSchedule functionality. For these practices, the ACC vendor ID in staff setup will not automatically copy from the ACC provider field. If this applies to your practice, you will need to manually update the ACC vendor ID in the staff setup. If your ACC vendor ID field in the location setup is currently blank, please do not enter any numbers into this field. We will now talk about setting up your digital certificates. To allow ACC forms and invoices to be sent to ACC via the APIs, a digital certificate must be configured under the location or the staff setup. The digital certificate and passphrase for your practice will be provided by HealthLink. If your practice has been provided a single digital certificate for a specific location, this must be set up under the location setup. If an individual provider has been assigned a digital certificate, this must be set up under their staff setup. To associate the digital certificate in either the staff or the location setup, click on the icon, browse for the certificate, and select it. We will now cover setting up ACC contracts and ACC services. There are two types of ACC contracts. One is regulatory contract or generic contract, and two is non-regulatory contract or health-wise contracts. Regulatory contracts are the generic prices ACC will pay for services. Each regulatory contract has a contract number based on the staff role. For example, contract number 80 is for GP and 56 is for nurses, etc. The regulatory contract numbers are derived based on the ACC provider code of the income provider who is invoicing for that ACC service. The ACC provider code is found in the Staff Setup menu. Open your Staff Setup. And in the Provider tab here, you will see the ACC provider code field. You need to ensure the ACC provider code is the correct code for that staff member based on their provider type. To select the provider type, click on the ellipsis and select from the list. Non-regulatory contracts are legal contracts between ACC and an organisation who provides ACC services at a defined rate. The non-regulatory contracts are set up by clicking on this icon in both the staff and the location settings. The contract setup screen will display all the ACC services configured in the PMS and their respective contract numbers. If your practice has non-regulatory contract numbers for the location, please ensure that they are entered into the location setup. If an individual staff member has their own non-regulatory contract number, please ensure they are entered within their own staff setup. Please note, if a service code doesn't exist in Medtech32, it needs to be set up first with its subsidy rate prior to entry of the contract number beside the service. For instructions on how to do this, please search the knowledge base on the Customer Insight portal. Finally, when an ACC invoice claim is generated, precedence is first given to the non-regulatory contract numbers. If these don't exist for the services, then the regulatory contract number from the income provider staff setup is used. Hence, it's imperative that all relevant staff are associated to the correct ACC provider code. Now we will talk about automated ACC accounts. As part of this upgrade, a new ACC account will be created automatically for each ACC vendor ID entered into Medtech32. As the staff member will have their own ACC vendor ID, the ACC account will be created for that specific staff member's ACC vendor ID and will be added automatically under their staff setup in the Accounts tab here. These ACC accounts will be grayed out automatically to ensure they are not replaced or removed manually. For practices that are enabled to use ACC eSchedule, the ACC account will be created for the ACC vendor ID in the location setup. The ACC account will be associated with all staff members linked to that location. The ACC account that have been created automatically can be searched in the Search Patient screen, and the correct ACC account can be selected to view their details. This will enable the viewing of all ACC invoice claim details grouped under that ACC account by their account holder account screen. We will now cover the billing method for quantity-based service. ACC invoices require the submission of a billing method for all services invoiced. There are 3 billing methods which ACC accept: distance, units, which are a flat fee, and time. Currently, services in Medtech32 can be specified as quantity-based, but the billing method for these can't be defined. To enable this, a new drop-down has been introduced into the quantity-based checkbox in the New or View Services Setup screen. To access this, go to Setup, Accounting, and Services, open a service, down here you can click Quantity-Based Service and select from the drop-down menu. As part of this upgrade, existing ACC services that are configured as quantity-based services will have a default selection of the billing method set. For further information on this, please refer to the full release notes.